Thousands of people walk beneath this balcony every day. They carry shopping bags. They pause for photos. They drift along St. George Street between whitewashed facades that suggest the 1700s, even though much of what they're seeing was rebuilt in the 1900s. They rarely look up. Above them, a wooden railing runs the length of the second floor of the Arrivas House. On March 11, 1963, the Vice President of the United States stood at that railing and addressed a crowd gathered in the street below. There is no large plaque that announces it. Today, the building houses the Panama Hat Company. But for a stretch of time in the spring of 1963, the storefront was a federal stage. And the moment that unfolded here sits at the edge of one of the most consequential chapters in modern American history. This is the Gallivanter Podcast. I'm Chad. Today we're going deep into Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson's visit to St. Augustine in March of 1963. We're going to look at why that balcony was chosen, what the city was trying to accomplish, what else happened that same day that almost never gets mentioned, and why this clean, orderly ceremony now reads differently when you place it next to what would happen in the city just a year later. Because this is not just a story about a speech. It's a story about timing. By 1963, St. Augustine was preparing for 1965. 400 years since its founding in 1565 under Spanish rule. The city was positioning that anniversary not as a local festival, but as a national event. Tourism projections were tied to it. Infrastructure planning revolved around it. State officials were invested in it. In 1959, Florida created the historic St. Augustine Preservation Board to restore and reconstruct key colonial-era properties in preparation for the quadricentennial. This wasn't passive preservation. It was active staging. St. George Street in the Restoration Corridor was converted into a pedestrian space. Buildings were rebuilt using archaeological evidence and colonial maps. The goal was coherence. When you stood in that corridor, you were meant to see one story. Spain, 1565. Origins. By 1963, the stage was ready. The Arrivas House was the first completed restoration project under the new preservation program. That made it a natural showpiece. The reconstructed facade reflected the Second Spanish period. The balcony overlooked a narrow, controlled street that eliminated traffic and visual clutter. It offered elevation, containment, and optics. If you were inviting a national figure to validate your historical narrative, this is where you would put him. On March 11, 1963, Lyndon Johnson arrived in St. Augustine as part of a Florida tour that included Jacksonville. He was greeted by local officials. A cannon salute marked the ceremony. From that balcony, he delivered formal remarks supporting the restoration effort and the upcoming 400th anniversary celebration. The event unfolded smoothly. The crowd below was orderly. The images projected stability. The Preservation Board operated for nearly 40 years and completed over 30 projects in the downtown area. Johnson's appearance was not the only ceremonial act that day. Spanish officials were present as part of quadricentennial planning. A cornerstone ceremony for a planned Spanish cultural center took place in the same historic district. The ambassador of Spain participated in laying mortar. The framing was deliberate. St. Augustine was not just celebrating longevity. It was reaffirming a diplomatic and cultural connection to Spain. The past was being positioned as an international bridge, not just a tourist hook. Johnson in his remarks referenced exploration, drawing parallels between Spain's Atlantic voyages and America's space age ambitions. In 1963, that comparison resonated. The country was racing toward the moon. Linking 16th century exploration to 20th century space travel was a way of suggesting continuity of purpose. Old world, new world, space. All of it compressed into one narrow pedestrian street. In March 1963, Johnson was vice president under John F. Kennedy. But he was also the former Senate Majority Leader. He understood the architecture of federal power better than most presidents who would follow him. He knew how legislation stalled. He knew how Southern coalitions held together. He knew the limits of what could pass. At that moment, he was not yet the Civil Rights Act president. The major civil rights bill that would define his presidency had not yet been signed. The political terrain was still shifting. Southern Democrats still held considerable influence in Congress. Johnson standing on that balcony represented federal authority, yes, but also political calculation. He was a Southerner who had learned to move legislation through Southern resistance. That detail matters when you place him in St. Augustine in 1963. By early 1963, St. Augustine was already experiencing civil rights activism. Local NAACP Youth Council members were organizing sit-ins at segregated lunch counters. Arrests had occurred. Public accommodations remained contested. The city's racial divide was not hidden. It was simply not the focus of the ceremony for LBJ. There were no reported disruptions tied to Johnson's visit. The event was controlled and orderly, but the calm of that afternoon becomes striking in retrospect. Within a year, St. Augustine would be thrust into the national spotlight as one of the most visible civil rights flashpoints in the country. Demonstrations at hotels and beaches would generate images that circulated across the United States. The city would be cited during Senate debate as Congress considered sweeping civil rights legislation. In March 1963, none of that was yet headline news, but the groundwork had been laid. 8 months after Johnson stood on that balcony, President Kennedy was assassinated. Johnson took the oath of office. In 1964, events in St. Augustine would become part of the national argument over federal civil rights reform. When LBJ signed the Civil Rights Act into law, he did so as president of a country that had watched St. Augustine's streets erupt in protest. Today, the Arrivas House houses the Panama Hat Company. It remains state-owned and managed as part of the historic district, but it functions as retail space. The balcony is still there. Most people passing beneath it have no idea that a future president once addressed a crowd from above. St. Augustine layers history quietly. It does not always point to it. You have to know to look up. On March 11, 1963, Lyndon B. Johnson came to celebrate 400 years of continuity. Within a year, St. Augustine would become part of a national reckoning that defined his presidency. The ceremony was precise. The future was not. This has been the Gallivanter Podcast. I'm Chad. Wherever you go, take the story with you.